Okay, I think we're recording now. Go ahead.
All right, so this is our Unity mobile app development webcast course for our interns. As with all build-it-yourself intern courses, we'd like the end goal to be to contribute to or create a product that build-it-yourself will use, so that it's something that a real company is using, and that's something cool that that our interns can point to. And of course, it also needs to be a good learning experience for our interns. So the goal of this particular workshop, the Unity mobile app development, is to eventually arrive at a curriculum for a Unity workshop that Build It Yourself could offer either as a summer camp or as a weekly webcast course, alongside our Scratch Games course and our Lego courses and so forth. The details of what that class is going to look like, in terms of how long is it going to be, is it broken into 2 or 3 workshops, what exactly are the content of the workshop, that's all kind of yet to be determined. What we've done in previous webcast series with the interns is we have created kind of a proof of concept kind of project that interns worked on that is a platforming game that might be the end product of one of these webcast courses. And then in a second webcast series, we created a clone of the classic game Pong, and that will serve that could serve as maybe a first project, kind of an introductory project for a webcast course. We touched on some of the very basic elements to designing a game in Unity, creating objects in the scene, creating some simple scripts, and adding lighting, adding a camera, adding a splash screen at the beginning with a button to start the game. And so that gives us a kind of a starting point. Moving forward, the question is, okay, once we have kind of mastered the basics that we've learned in creating our little Pong game, what's the next step? Where do we go from there? And I think goals for this. I'll start with goals for this series of webcasts, and then we'll get to the goals for just today. I think for this series of webcasts, we would like to get a good understanding of what resources are freely available to us. Unity publishes, some what they call assets, some things that they have pre-made to help developers. And so we should get familiar with some of those and some of the more useful things. I think there are probably a lot of cool things that are available to us, whether that's pre-made scripts or objects, or even just examples to look at that maybe weren't available when we made our platforming game a few years ago, and I think Travis was part of that project. Hi, Travis. So we'd like to have a good understanding of what's available, and I think we would like to maybe update our little platforming game. So I think the platforming, creating a platforming game is almost certainly going to be some part of our workshop, whether it's the big final project or maybe it's one of a few different options for a final project. We'd like to be very good at making platforming games and at making and at helping students step through the process of making those platforming games. We want to be very good at that. So we can. So a goal of this webcast. So I think first goal is to again familiarize ourselves with what's available, and then secondly, let's create a platforming game and get a routine down for stepping students through that process as well.
Excuse me, Jacob.
That's still open-ended because there's a lot of things we can do. Does that sound good to you, John?
Yeah, excuse me, Jacob. Sounds great. And one thing I'd like to do, I wonder if this would make sense, to do a little brainstorming from after we finish the platform game, where could we head? Just so we give the interns a sense, after the platform game, there's the Pong game. Are there other games that lend themselves to 3D mobile app game environment? Do you have any ideas, Travis, on a kind of game that you think, first of all, would be fun to develop, fun for the interns to develop, and secondly, games that fit on that platform that end users would love to play, would get a lot of attention in the press? Any thoughts, Travis?
I would say that probably an intricate 2D side scroller or a simple 3D third-person walk-around would be a very popular game style.
3D walk-around. Tell me more about 3D walk-around, because Brent, maybe you could start to set up what we're doing with Scratch, just to see where we could take this in Unity. While Travis is explaining this a little bit more, did you set up the Scratch game you're developing? Have you seen? Oh, go ahead, Travis. What do you mean by walk around?
So, for example, what we could do to demo this walk around is we could have a flat plane with a few walls. Maybe it's a cylindrical area where you're inside the cylinder, and on the ground you're controlling a person that's walking around that cylindrical area, and it's 3D, and the camera would be placed behind the person, so it is a third person.
Okay, great. Brent, can I pass you the ball for just a second?
Yeah, I have it.
Can you show Travis what we're doing? And Jacob, I don't think you've seen this. And what we want to do is sort of measure if this could be after the platform game, the next game we should attack. I think you have the ball, Brent. Go ahead.
All right, so this is the game that I'm making in Scratch. It's mostly rendered in Blender 3D, but exported the graphics to Scratch. This is just placeholder stuff because we're using it as a module game engine for the intern. You press space key to begin. You would have a intro scene, and then you're trying to get to a planet. You have to avoid asteroids. I believe it's on this screen. I think it's right next to this Jupiter-looking planet where there it is. So in the distance, you'll see a planet coming up. I delayed it 10 seconds. And if you get hit by one, just sort of take it, seeing it, your health will go down by 10.
That's awesome.
That's a full 360 panorama.
Yeah. So the hint, the storyline and a hint would be sort of a find it game. I think this is what you're talking a little bit about, what you're talking about, no, Travis? You get a hint about what you're looking for, and then you have to explore the panorama to find the gold key or whatever the storyline dictates.
Yeah, that can be done with a 3D walk around, I guess.
3D walk around.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
great.
That's cool. I think yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this game that you're seeing right now is pretty cool. It's sort of a that's definitely the most impressive thing I've ever seen in a Scratch project. That's for sure.
There's actually a 3D airplane one that impresses me more than this. That one's insane.
This is
Total 3D. Listen.
Oh wow, that's really cool. I mean, this is sort of it's sort of like well, it's 3D graphics, but it's sort of a two-dimensional flight simulator.
Right.
It's really, I mean, if I were to pick a genre on it, it would be a flight simulator.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to show this to stimulate the brainstorming process.
That's really cool. That could certainly be done in Unity, you know, very easily.
Great.
That's cool. I think what Travis is maybe getting at is sort of a you know, if you're familiar with well, you know, like a lot of existing you know, games like I don't know, like a Mass Effect or a you know, kind of showing my age here, but you know, your old like Legend of Zelda, like Ocarina of Time games. Is that more what you're looking at, Travis? Like a 3D platformer or a 3D adventure game? Yeah, is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was talking about.
Yeah, and those can be done pretty easily with Unity as well. In fact, I would think we could do a simple example that's maybe even more ambitious than the one that you described, Travis. There are tutorials. In fact, it used to be. I think they've changed the like simple tutorial that ships with Unity when you download it. But it used to be that there was this kind of sophisticated 3D platforming game with a robot that jumps around and hovers and stuff. That was a 3D adventure game. In fact, in some ways, this is something we may want to look at. In some ways, the 3D, just because of years ago, just because of what was available out of the box with Unity. You know, they had 3D character scripts that were great out of the box. I think they've improved their 2D stuff since then. But years ago, it was almost easier to make a 3D platformer than it was to make a 2D platformer, just because of what was available. So that's certainly, yeah. I mean, it's a natural extension of you know, the 2D thing. I think it's maybe a little bit trickier challenge to take a 3D adventure game and translate it into specifically a mobile app. Obviously, Unity can be used to make, you know, games on a variety of platforms, you know, including just computer, desktop, web, you know, in browser, plus mobile games. I think there's even like an Xbox 360 platform as well. So I'm not sure how exactly a 3D like adventure game would translate specifically to a mobile app. I don't know that that's necessarily a problem if it's not perfect though. I think it would still be cool. It would still be a really fun project. And you know, I suspect that even if mobile apps is the even if mobile apps is the title of the course and it's the draw, and of course we want to end up with mobile apps, you know, for the kids at the end of the workshop. You know, I suspect that you know, we would have students that go through the workshop and, you know, that maybe were drawn in by the mobile app thing, but have discovered that, hey, this is a great tool to make desktop games and in-browser games and stuff that's not on mobile.
Great. It's nice to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so getting back to the agenda today, did you want to suggest each of us take a topic to research for the week?
Yeah, that was kind of the direction we would go. I thought we might start by taking a look at taking a quick refresher, not a super long refresher, but at least a quick refresher at our Pong game that we had made. Now, I don't know if Brent has seen this. Maybe Brent saw this briefly. So this would be good to show Brent too.
You have the ball, Jacob.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, I'll share my desktop here in a second. So I think we should take a quick look at that just to kind of refresh our memory on the basics of what we learned. And then from there, we can, I think we should go, we should kind of go out and start some of that research that we talked about, looking into some of the, some of the things that are available on Unity's website and perhaps elsewhere, that can, lots of pre-built modules that we can build on top of. So I'm going to share my desktop, and here is now this is our Pong project, and what you see here is actually one of our scenes, and I think we have 2 scenes. Actually, looks like there's 3. I think one of them we're not using. One of them's an old one. We look at build settings. Okay, so you can have multiple scenes in a game. Multiple scenes in a project. Your project is your entire game, and then within that game you can have multiple scenes. You can, oftentimes that might be like multiple levels that you transition between. And we, to see the different scenes that you have already created, I mean, you can always create a new scene, or you can open an old scene, but to see the ones that that you have set up to be part of your project, you go to Build Settings, File, Build Settings, and you can see here the first one is our splash screen, and the second one is Pong Dash Game. And then down here you can even see what platform we want to export to. And now, for now, oh, look at that. There's Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Wii.
Wow.
All 3 of these consoles are about to become obsolete, so I'm assuming they'll replace those with Xbox One and PS4 and Wii U here at some point. And then you see we also have iOS and Android. But I believe in order to use these, oh, even BlackBerry, how about that? And Windows Phone. And this is a new one. I didn't recognize that either. But I believe some of these are pay to use. Just doing the desktop standalone and the web player are free. But porting to mobile devices is pay to use, and it's a little bit expensive. It's like a couple $100. So our exact business model, as far as what we want to do there, is going to be something we'll have to work out. It may be that we just have a copy that we use, and that we'll port those for our students. That could be. I don't. Or maybe that's something we require them to have. It's an open question as to how we'll handle that. For now, though, we can do most of our development on the standalone, just the desktop, and then at the end we'll talk about how we can port our game, transition our game from a mouse and keyboard game to a touch screen game for mobile device. So we have 2 scenes. Sorry, getting off on a tangent. We have 2 scenes. Note that they have numbers, and they're 0 indexed. And what that allows us to do is that allows us to, in our scripts, and let's see if I can view this script. I can really there's 2 objects in this scene. 2 game objects. I have the camera, which is almost always there by default, I think. There it is. And reminder to move around the scene. Oops. Wow, you right-click, and you can rotate. And you can hold down your middle mouse button to do this. I think there's a keyboard equivalent too. Then you can click on things to select them. And then you can kind of zoom out. I like to zoom out by using my mouse wheel. I think there are keyboard shortcuts for that as well. Yeah. And you can kind of move side to side with. Oh yeah, you can fly around the scene. It doesn't look like much right now because there's not much to be flying around. But you can fly around the scene with WASD, your WASD keys. Okay, so here's the. Let me close these. This is the one we're worried about right now. This is our script editor. And I got to this by finding. All right, so our first element was the camera. Our second element is just an empty. I created an empty game object called a GUI, a GUI, and we added one script to the GUI, and that's what we call the splash screen GUI. Okay, and here's the script. And the way we make a GUI is sort of it's something that's not really part of the action. It's just a display. And so we've been using the GUI to make a before we've used the GUI to make like a score display on the screen. Something that the character's not going to collide into, but you always want to see it. We also used it here to make a splash screen at the very beginning. And this is the simplest possible, the simplest possible GUI. We made a more complicated one for our robot game, which I have up in this window. This is also done entirely with, in the same method. This is a splash screen with 3 buttons and a big image on the back. This is just going to be a single button. And see how it says how we call the application.load level, and that's what we're going to use to switch levels. In fact, I think there's a way we can call this method to just give us the next level, whatever the next level is. In this case, we're calling load level 1. And so what that's going to do is that's going to find scene number 1 and load that scene. So when we hit go to run this, okay, there's that start game button that we created in our script. And this is how you create a button. GUI.button, and then rect stands for rectangle, which gives you, and then you give it the position and the size of the rectangle, and you give it the text for the button, and that creates your button. And you wrap it in an if, in an if statement like this, and that syntax means that once this button is clicked, this is what you do. And so we start the game, and that brings up our next scene, which is our fancy Pong game here. Oh, I lost. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at that other scene. Okay, now here's our, so that was one basic, fundamental that we learned for that last scene was how to make a GUI with buttons. A lot more happening in this scene. Okay, we added game objects that are, that are visible, that are in the scene, that interact with other game objects. So we've got our paddles. Notice how we created a game object. To do that, we would do create game object. You could start with an empty one, or you can go to create other to create a camera or a light, or start with a shape. And eventually, we will move into importing 3D models from Blender and create game objects from our Blender. Our cool Blender 3D models, and that's something we will need to research. So we've done that before, but it's tricky. So it can be tricky. So we will make sure we get really good at doing that. So I guess for starters, we'll start with this paddle and have a look at what's going on here. we started with a cube, I think, and we use the transform panel here to to change its shape a little bit. For a lot of what we do, we will eventually use Blender models instead of these simple shapes. But for stuff like this, certainly fine to use just the simple shapes that come with Unity. In this case, we just elongated it so that we got our paddle shape. And important things we did here is we added a box collider and a rigid body, and these are going to what these things do is they make it kind of behave. They make it interact with sort of Unity physics, so we can detect when it collides with the ball. The ball also has a collider and a rigid body. Oops. And notice that. Well, did I just change something? I may have. Oh, okay, still works. I think I changed something with the paddle by accident. That's okay. Okay, so again, there's a sphere collider, there's a rigid body on the paddles, on the left paddle and the right paddle, and on the ball. And what that lets us do is on our script, and we have here we made a paddle movement script. Well, you know what? That's actually not going to be interesting yet. Start with the ball movement script. Okay, this is where our collisions matter, and we have a function that we call onCollisionEnter, and this function is going to get called every time the ball collides with something. Every time we detect that ball collides with something, it's going to call this function. And we're going to detect what we collided with. Did we collide with the top wall, the bottom wall? In which case we want to invert our speed. If we're going up, then we hit the top wall. We want to start going down. And then if we collide with the paddle, what happens? Well, here's our behavior for what happens when that happens. In this case, we're reversing direction. If you're going left, we're going to start going right, and we're going to increase the speed so that the ball keeps going faster and faster. And I think we do some funny stuff with the with the up and down direction, just so it doesn't go straight left and straight right all the time. So that would be a little bit boring. Anyway, so that's the basic concept of how of how we did the game logic for this.
Jacob, can I chime in here? I think this is spectacular. I love introducing Unity the way you did, because it seems relatively simple compared to the platform game. You talk about the physics engine. It's a nice way to introduce Unity. One question I might ask with respect to the platform game, with respect to the Pong game, is how could we make this a game engine so that there could be different storylines and different graphics? Take it sort of beyond Pong, and but use the same engine, but just have different sort of variations of the Pong game. Any thoughts, Brent or Travis, on variations of something, one or two or three or more objects floating around that you have to paddle back? Have you seen variations of Pong games take the same engine, but in a different environment?
Well, not necessarily exactly on that idea. That you could repackage it like table, ping pong, tennis, maybe handball, stuff like that. Similar physics or similar game type, and just redo the graphics.
Right. I saw a juggler game. You juggle one ball, then you juggle two balls. I saw another version where things were coming down from the sky, and you had to hit them back up. As you got better and better, more and more balls came down. They came down faster. So it would be nice if we, as you said earlier, Jacob, sort of structure a platform, a game engine that could be used in, or would inspire sort of variations of the storyline and the graphics. Does that make sense, Jacob?
Yep. And yeah, certainly customizing the graphics here is something that we can do pretty easily. You can change the way that the backdrop looks. We even put a picture back there. Or we can talk about how to create a texture. That's a big topic in games. And that's for the backdrop and for everything that you see here. We can talk about playing with the lighting and doing different stuff with the lighting. That's another thing we didn't talk about yet. But that's a. But yeah, I think for the Pong game, I think part of the project should be how do you change how it looks? How do you change the graphics? Because that's really one of the fundamentals we want to learn with this little project.
Right. Is it the case that the Pong game is significantly simpler than the platform game, or the 3D walk around adventure game we talked about? Because,
I think it is. This is about as simple as it gets.
This is a good introductory example.
Yep, we would have a splash screen with with one button. That's the simplest possible. We have something that you move in two directions. Up and down. So that's pretty simple. I think the only really tricky part about this is specifically how does the ball move, and how does the computer move the other paddle. We have a little bit of a little AI there to move the other paddle, but that we can prepackage just those things.
Why wouldn't we make it just one paddle and have the ball bounce off the off the edges?
Well, I mean, there's a question of how do you win, how do you keep score in that sort of situation.
If the ball gets by it faster. Yeah, okay. So I'm just brainstorming here.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought though, because that would be a little bit simpler. It could be just you get points for how long you're able to keep the ball going.
Exactly.
So that's something we can think about too.
Okay.
Although, quite frankly, it may be a good experience. Now, thinking about this more, it might be a good experience to take an element, take something or two, take a game object or two that is pre-built, and plug it into your game. That might be an approach. Yeah, that might be a good. There's a good lesson there too, in using stuff that's using stuff that's available. Not stealing, but using stuff that's freely available.
Right. Very interesting. So let me ask Travis, from the point of view of interest, if our goal here is to develop a course, and in that course develop a game, a 3D mobile app course, and in that course develop a game that kids would love to play and show off to their buddies. Does Pong, I mean, Pong seems to be a good instructional entry point, but would you say that your buddies would, you know, enjoy playing that or be proud of it?
I don't know if they'd enjoy playing it, but I think they'd be proud of it if they were able to make it. So if we were to do this in an actual course, I'd say spend no more than a day creating the Pong game so we can move on to more intricate stuff that will pique their interest more.
Yeah, good point. Is that doable, Jacob and Brent? Could we make the graphics and introduce them to Pong in 1.5 days?
Well, Pong graphics is pretty much the primitive, so I can guarantee you within 5 minutes I can have everyone make a sphere and rectangle. Like, that's a definite involved there.
Yeah. And quite frankly, there's, you know, we don't necessarily need to do any Blender graphics at all.
That's, I know.
Yeah,
I can send them to you in advance.
We can save the Blender stuff for our, you know, for the other, right? Because this is just this is just a simple sphere, and these are boxes. And even the frame here is just box. I suppose we could make something other than a ball for the, you know, other than a sphere for the ball. If you want to, I don't know what you'd put there.
Right.
But
okay.
or maybe some adornments. You know, just some cool you know, decorations. In Blender.
Does this game engine, the physics of Unity, give you control over the angle of the ball? I know in some Pong games, depending on, you can sort of add English to the ball.
Yeah. I mean, for this game, we're actually not really using the physics engine. We're kind of doing custom, you know, we're not really using physics. We have, you know, we uncheck the use gravity button. We uncheck the kinematic. Really, we're just using this to detect our collisions when we collide with something. Notice
the ball bounces at an exiting angle, the same angle that it comes in, regardless.
Well, no, it doesn't. We do that. Let me find the script here. Ball movement. We do change, you know, what we have set up on the ball, and I need to document this code if we're going to use it. We may change it yet, but even so, it should be better documented. Is that when we hit the paddle, we effectively are changing the angle that the ball comes off at, because it's going to come off at a random. We add a little random number to the you know, to the speed where it's going up and down. So it may come off at a different angle, or it will come off at a different angle than it came on. And something we could, you know, it's a possible development is to adjust that script so that if you hit the very edge of the paddle, it puts more, you know, more spin on it, or more, you know, it comes off at a wider angle. I think that's what a lot. I know Brick Attack kind of does that. So that's a possible expansion.
Okay. There's variations or degrees of difficulty we could add to this Pong game to make it more interesting.
But really, I think our goal is just to learn the very basics and get something very simple working.
Yeah. Cool. This sounds fantastic to me.
So Travis, I know you helped us work on this. Is it kind of coming back as to how this all works? Is there something,
I said little by little.
Yeah, is there something in particular you want to go over before we proceed?
No, I think I'll be fine.
Cool.
Okay. Jacob, I don't I don't want to go too far because I really want to invite some others into this. I think this is really great the way you're planning this, and I'd like to get Nina and Nick and Michael and Jonathan into this game. I think they would love it, into this workshop.
Yeah, and I think when we get the other interns that are going to be on the project back, I think we may take a session and do a closer, detailed look at this rather than just kind of breezing through it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What if we and unless there's something you think is really appropriate here, save it for next week, and I'll try to recruit some more interns to join.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're done looking at this for now.
Okay. What if we talk just for 5 minutes about the music course?
Oh, okay.
Can I introduce you, guys? So I know Travis. Both of you are, main music guys. I think the very first time you saw Build It Yourself was through Jacob's music course. No, Travis?
That and a few other courses.
Oh, okay.
I took the Scratch HTML and
one summer, but I definitely remember you were in our first music course with Jacob. I thought anyway. So now, Jacob, you haven't seen this, but I have a good friend, Jeremy Sagan. He happens to be the son of Carl Sagan, who we worked together many years ago on a software project. But since then, he's focused on developing music composition software. So he was a key member of the Cakewalk team, and then he left to develop something that he started at Cakewalk. It's a professional music composition, music mixing tool called Metro, and it's a high-end, it's like a Photoshop of the music world. So it's a high-end garage band tool. And so we've got a music studio now set up with an 8-channel mixer, great Tannoy monitor speakers. I mean, they're just like, they make the room shake. I never had speakers as nice as this. And Metro, his software. Oh, we also have a nice keyboard. We were thinking about getting an electronic drum set, but we thought we'd maybe try making our own drum set. A street band, pots and pans drum set. So all that's to say, we've got a corner of our lab now dedicated to music, and since we have so many musicians on the team, really good musicians. Alexia is a cappella singer at MIT, following the footsteps of you, Jacob. And DJ, of course, sings at Cornell and now in a Boston a cappella group. And we have 2 really good intern musicians, 3 really good ones, Val and Jonathan and David. All are, and I think even Nina are well-schooled musicians. So the big picture is that we were thinking it would be interesting to try to evolve the game, the music course, such that members from remote locations could record tracks, and we could mix them all together at a central location. Let me stop there. Does that sound interesting and doable? In other words, someone create lyrics and lay down a voice track, someone lay down a drum track. If someone's into the piano or guitar, they could or bass, they could lay down their tracks, and then in some central location we'll mix them all together. Let me ask Travis, Is that something that would attract the attention of your buddies who are musicians?
Yeah, definitely.
John, if I could ask, what's kind of the goal of what we're trying to teach, what we're trying to learn? Are we going to go into like EQ and mixing, or is this like a music theory thing?
That's the key question. We should always start with the goal. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you. I don't know. I think there are many things that we could teach in the process of mixing tracks. It could be music theory. Everyone has to play in the same key at the same tempo, or not necessarily. We can actually change the keys, right, in the software. In fact, Jeremy and I have done that. He plays the keyboard in one key, the tune, and I play the guitar in another key, and then he just transforms the key, and they mix together. I think the sort of photoshopping of music could be a goal, and music theory could also be a goal. Maybe we have music 101, 102, 103, and we focus on music theory in 101, and then we focus on the photoshopping or metroing of music tracks in 102. I'm just brainstorming here. I'm looking for feedback from you, Travis, on what you think your buddies would be most attracted to, and to you, Jacob, on what's doable. I know you've done a fair amount of mixing in your a cappella group at MIT, no?
Yeah, in fact, I'm doing some right now. Well, not right now, but I have a project going where I'm helping produce a CD. In fact, I can show you some of that too.
Yeah. Be most interested. You got the ball.
Oh, okay. I hope that.
What tool are you using to?
I'm using Pro Tools, and I'm not sure that the sound is going to come across, but I think at least we can see it. Let's see. My sound card does weird things when I open Pro Tools. So
okay, just
we'll see how this works.
And explaining what different tracks you're mixing.
Yeah, let's see. If my sound card comes out, I may need to call in on my phone in order to talk to you guys, but that's okay. That'll work.
Okay. Or maybe we could set this up for next week, because I'm going to try to get DT and Alexia to join the music webcast next week to brainstorm some of this.
Yeah. I'm not sure it usually doesn't take this long to load. I wonder if that's the sound card kind of
fighting.
It's usually really quick.
Well, let's.
Well, yeah. I tell you what, I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, well, no, there we go. Okay. As soon as I say to give up on it, let's see if we pick a good one to use here. Those are all our different CD tracks. Here we go. Okay. This will take just a quick second to come up. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Let's
Have
just
you ever
play.
used mixing software like this, Travis? GarageBand or?
Yeah, I've used GarageBand, Mixcraft, Fruity Loops, programs like that.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. So the audio is not going to come across,
Okay.
but we can. That's So that's just I've dealt with that before, trying to do this over over webcast and even over remote desktop. For some reason, it just doesn't like to share its audio over remote desktop type things. But at least we can see kind of the visuals. So each what we have here is that each one of these tracks is a different person singing. So the way we would record this is we would take everyone. Well, this isn't our entire singing group, but we take 8 or somewhere 8 to 10 people in our singing group, and we would go one at a time into the recording booth, and in that recording booth, you would put headphones on, and in the headphones we would play the song. We would play. It might be just kind of. It might be just what we call the MIDI, which is just kind of computer-generated notes, or if someone had already recorded, the other parts of the song, we would play the other parts, and then you would sing along with what you hear in your headphones, and we record that. So what we end up with is individual tracks for each person.
This is tremendous.
Yeah.
And this lends itself to remote. I don't know how you call it, conducting remote orchestration. You can record those tracks.
You certainly could, because this is it's individual tracks that you end up putting together.
Right.
To make sure that everyone's playing together. It's a nice kind of strategy to have something pre-recorded that you can play along with.
Right.
Even if what's recorded isn't production quality, that's not the point. The point is that you play along with it so that everyone's together.
And you can take that track out after everyone fills in the blanks, no?
Oh yeah. In fact, those original. Exactly. In fact, here's the MIDI for one of the parts, and what we can do is, I think I have those kind of grouped together so they're all muted together. But if I wanted to mute individual ones, I could just click mute,
right.
or even just delete it. Now that I'm done with it, and make it go away. And actually, what I've done here, usually when you first record it, you wouldn't see these little holes here. That's something that I did. Part of my job in fixing up the CD that we're making is that I would take the raw recordings and I would delete out, places where the person took a breath, so that those don't clutter up the sound.
Yeah.
If they held the note too long, I would cut it off and maybe fade out that note,
Sure.
so that it sounds right. Maybe sometimes they sang the wrong notes in some places, but the right notes in others. So I could copy and paste. Take this and copy it and paste it over here, that sort of thing.
Or even translate that note to another. You can.
Well, yeah, and so then there's a way we can. Then there's auto tune, right? And that's let's see if I can. Let's see. I want to view. I remember how to bring this up. Oh no, that's not right.
So in a real, in the Hollywood studios, do they typically start with a metronome and then add chords and then add bass, or do they do what you do, have a sort of stock version of the song, and then you gradually add the tracks to that stock version, or what's the general process for producing a music piece these days?
Oh, how do professionals do it? I have no idea. This is how college a cappella groups do it. And we do start. We start with a click track and with just the midis, and then usually the first, if we can, if our group's schedules work out that way. Okay, here we go. If our group's schedules work out that way, we can, we'll start with the bass and then move our way up to the higher parts. Just because it seems like that's easier for other parts to record if they have the bass on there.
Right. The bass being the rhythm, basically, the tempo, even the key. The bass sets the tempo and the key.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here we go. Here's our auto tune. Now this is it wants me to update stuff. I don't want to update stuff right now. Okay, so this is actually no longer Pro Tools. This is something called Melodyne, which can be a standalone program or it can be an insert or an add-on to Pro Tools. And the Melodyne will, you feed Melodyne your audio track, and it will show you kind of the not really the waveform, but it kind of shows you the pitch and how the pitch moves. And then it will Melodyne will figure out where the notes change, and so it'll show you these little orange bars and what note they're on.
True pitch where the variation should.
Yep, yep. And so you can do a bunch of fun stuff with pitch. I mean, one thing I can do is if they're kind of like this note, they're kind of drifting, they're a little high at the beginning. I can change that so that they're so that they're staying on the same pitch. And if you try to change that dramatically, it'll sound weird. There'll be these artifacts, so it'll kind of sound auto-tuned. And if you know how when you hear a song and it sounds like it's auto-tuned, that's.
Can you bend the pitch?
Let's see. Well, one of the
you play a note and then you bend the note by.
Yeah, can I make it worse? Sure.
Yeah, right.
One of the common things to do is to just move it. So if I can in Melodyne, I can just click and drag this.
Yeah, yeah.
And change the note that way. So if they sang the completely the wrong note, we can click and drag and do it that way. Yeah, so that's auto tuning.
Okay.
And if it's if it's dramatic, if they're really far away from the pitch they're supposed to be on, then it's gonna sound weird. The end result. I mean, I guess sometimes in some styles of pop music, they'll add some sort of auto tune effects intentionally, just because that's a particular sound they're going for, and usually they combine that with some other effects too, not just auto tune. But if you're off by half of a note, you're just a little bit, then you can auto tune it, and you really can't hear the difference.
Right. So Travis, this is great, Jacob. Travis, just in the last minute here, what would you say should be the goal of a music course? Should it be since we generally call the music course visual music? Should it be the theory? Should it be different genres of music, or should it be the photoshopping of music? I really consider all this Pro Tools and Metro and GarageBand sort of the equivalent of photoshopping music. What do you think?
I agree with Jacob where he said we should have music 101, 102, etc. Where we have the intro course, which is mostly the theory, and then we have the more advanced courses, which get into the composition as well as the editing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Is this something that you would be interested in helping us develop, Travis, and ultimately teaching?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm really high on making a very, very strong music presence at Build It Yourself. I think everyone appreciates music, whether you're a music maker or a music listener. And I think we could make some examples that would, on first inspection, people would say, wow, that was done by a group of kids all over the world. I think music is a logical sort of companion to engineering. On so many levels, I think having a strong build-it-yourself music initiative would be really valuable. It would help differentiate us. Just every direction I look, it makes me think music should be a much more important part of build-it-yourself than it is right now. I'm amazed at how many engineers are good musicians. That really catches my attention. The way of attracting people to build it yourself, attracting good developers and teachers, if we have a strong music presence. So, okay, Jacob, thank you. Brent, thank you for sitting in. To be continued next week.
Okay, thanks, guys. See you next time.
All right.
Okay. See you guys. Bye.
See ya.